Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there. It's Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to episode 84 of Cognitive here on Monday, June 27th at almost 11 a.m. This is the nightmare episode that I keep having to re-record because of dog fights, my political ranting, and everything else. So let's see if we can get through it and keep it focused on cognitive strategies and knitting, not necessarily in that order, shall we? Mind you, I have nothing against people who put politics in their podcast, because I do too. And I think you all pretty well know what my politics are, so you can pretty much imagine how I'm feeling this week. But nonetheless, let's do some cognitive podcasts, knitting, segments, all that stuff. Let's just be together and try to be cozy for a while, shall we? In the warm thanks department, Metro Rebecca for a tasty coffee, and Karen RS75 and On Your Trike Somerton for the non-stop stream of comments. I really appreciate both these things. If you're wondering, you too can join the party and comment. You can use our group on Ravelry. And if you're going to do it, remember Cognitive, C-O-G, the word knit, I-V-E. And you can comment there on the show notes, or you can comment on the blog here, where I keep my notes, which is Cognitive Podcast. Again, Cognitive, C-O-G, the word knit, I-V-E. cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com. And people say to me all the time, why don't you get a Patreon account or some kind of account where people can pay you for the work? And I don't want to do that. I like using Ko-fi because it just is a small amount. And it's more of a way of saying, hey, thanks for this, here's a tip, but it's not a big expenditure. The reason is I'm not in this for the money. There are a lot of perfectly great podcasts that are side businesses for their podcasters. I really can't devote that kind of time to doing this. At the same time, I really do enjoy podcasting. I enjoy the feedback. I enjoy the community among other yarn people. So, really leaving a tip at Ko-fi is a small gesture in a hard time. So I don't feel like I'm asking you to support me. And if you don't do that, you can always just leave a comment. But I love your feedback in whatever form it comes. And I have to be honest, I deeply appreciate the Ko-fi donations. This podcast is not free to make. I do pay for my Libsyn subscription because I need a little more than the amount of storage you would get with a free account. So I do pay for that, but it's not a huge amount. And it's highly worth it to me to have this means of communication with the rest of the knitting world. As I'm saying this, warm thanks to all the knitters over the years since I started in 2008 who did their podcasts for free that I could enjoy. I really appreciate it. And warm thanks to all the podcasters who use sponsorship so that I can enjoy this for free, because this is not a cheap swipe at any of those people. That we all podcast for different reasons. And I think it's pretty ingenious if you can use podcasting as a side hustle. I think it's a great thing. I'm never going to commit at that level, and so I really appreciate it because I know y'all know that. And, as a result, I don't have to go to all the big events and report on them. I don't have to do reviews. I don't have to hunt up sponsors, whatever. So, that's a lot of work. I'm not going to do it. While we're on that subject, people go, well, here's how you could get more listeners. I don't care. You want to listen. Okay, but it's been a lot of fun doing this over the years. And I really appreciate the people who show thanks and respond in some form. So Metro Rebecca, thank you. And it's a delight to know you've been with me all these years. I really appreciate those long-term listeners. And Karen and On Your Trike, thank you too. COVID vaccines, you know my drill. Everybody get vaccinated. Now, kids down to 6 months. Look, there are millions of vaccinated people. I think we have to get over fears of the vaccine. I think we've pretty much proven by massive numbers that the vaccine is perfectly good. Do I want my kid in the experimental group of first kids who get the vaccine? Well, my kid was. The minute he could get one at his age, which I believe was 14 or 15 at the time, he got one. Perfectly fine. The fact of the matter is, I do not want my kid in the experimental group of what it's like when a child dies of COVID. Okay, you get your choice here. I'll take the risk. But please, everybody, get your shots, get your boosters. The information that you need for getting your COVID test for free from the government, for getting a record of your vaccine, that's all on the website, on the blog, in my show notes. What's in my hooks and needles? Funny you should ask. I finished the Fishy Brick sweater. This should have been finished probably 2 months ago. I don't know if I've been working on it that long, but anyway, you get my drift. It should have been finished a long time ago. It is in Malabrigo Rios, which is hands down my single favorite yarn type. Worsted weight, multiply, multiple colors in one colorway. In other words, subtly variegated, not all the colorways, but some of them. If you look at my pictures, you will see I am a green-eyed, dark blonde, or light brunette person. My skin color is kind of a medium white. I'm not like uber pale or transparent. And I have pink undertones, although I'm always tanned, so I look a little more golden than I am. The reason I say that is the colors of Rios that work for me really well bring that out. So it's pines, which is greens, and Wales Road. I can also go for high contrast, like the Cerezza, the cherry, and I can have fun, like I can wear things like Archangel, which is, it's purple and orange, but from a distance it looks like a rusty brick color. I have to admit, so far, the ones that really shine on me are Pines and Wales Road. And that's the delight of Rios, that you go in there with your skin and your hair and your eye color, and there's these wonderfully complicated, subtly variegated in small bits, not long stripes, for color. And you can really find what works for you, what really makes you glow. So I'm very happy about finishing this one. I've got a lovely wardrobe of bricks right now, which makes me think, number one, I may yet go back and steek the one in Archangel as an experiment, because it is not well fitted to me. The other interesting thing is, as I've been making bricks, gradually I have been experimenting with decreases in the body so that it fits me better. And yeah, this particular brick is the fit I want. I got a really good fit out of this one. And so I now have a way to do the bodies of my bricks. I don't do a lot of tapering on the arms because my upper arms are heavy, as an older woman's arms often are. So I'm pretty happy with not too many experiments. I've done a little bit of tapering below the elbow, and I've really hit the sweet spot on the brick, is what I'm saying. And this is kind of what I want. I want a wardrobe of basic sweaters. Nothing fancy, just a basic top-down sweater, raglan sleeves with a plain neckline. I don't want any fancy lace work or stitch work on it. I just want something I can throw on over a t-shirt in the winter, and in the deeper winter over my turtlenecks and over my open-necked collared shirts. So that's what my brick wardrobe has been about. And nonetheless, I've gotten some glorious variations like the Feral Easter egg. And every time I make the brick, I learn a little more about fitting it to myself. So this leads me to say I still have the Bright Cherries brick that was started for Twin Face. It's almost finished. It's a shame. And I'm really just getting ready, I think, to rip it out. That I was going to try and make it into a vest for myself. But when I was making that for her, I kept saying, boy, I'd really like to do a brick in this for myself. And I think I really would. The other option it might do is I might go into cardigans, because I have such a good brick wardrobe right now. I mean, for myself, I've got the Archangel brick. I've got this brick. I've got the Feral Easter egg, which is kind of pinks. And I've got the Mammoth Mad Skills, which is very heavy, which I love, and is red and silver and black. So I've got this really nice wardrobe. And I've also got a pretty good wardrobe of vests going based on Ann Budd's basic vest pattern in the Knitter's Handy Book of Patterns. I've got a lot of those, but some of them are badly fitted, and they're done as Hogwarts sweaters. And I like them. I'm glad to have them. They're not particularly well fitted. And so when I did the Pines vest, I really hit my stride. This is the way I should make it. I really worked out the tapering and everything. And so now I've got some Rios Blue Jean 4-skein, so that will probably be my next vestuary vest. In case you're wondering, I also have 4 skeins of Onyx Fiber Arts Bulky Multiply in coffee grounds, and she's out of that. So I'm waiting for her to dye more so I can get enough to finish an Agnes. That is my bulky pattern for a top-down sweater. And I want to finish the Agnes with no pockets in that. And so I think that's it. I've got some Rios Plomo, which is gray with silver and pink undertones, that I think is going to become an owl post sweater. I'm toying with it. But what I'm really saying is I've got a nice brick wardrobe. I've got a lot of good sweater plans. So I don't know what's going to happen to the Malabrigos Sedets cherries that started for Twin Face. I don't know if she changes her mind. Maybe she can have it back, but she better hurry. The Don't Know Yet. You remember the Don't Know Yet, where I'm making the little crocheted block every day. And I'm doing very well on that. And I'm trying to get a little ahead so that I don't have to take the crocheting with me on the plane to Kansas, because I'd like to take just one project instead of a lot of them. And if you look, there is a picture in the show notes of the box of yarns. And you will notice almost 7 months into this, I've got half a carton of yarn left. So this was a lot of yarn. I don't know how I ended up with all this yarn. I think I kept panicking when I was making the temperature blanket that I didn't have enough yarn, and I clearly ordered a lot more of it, particularly when it was on sale. So these are the odds and ends and leftovers. So you can see almost 7 months into knitting a block a day and getting somewhere between 9 and 11 blocks out of each skein. Look at all that yarn I've got left. I'm very pleased about this. Currently the plan is to get to 361 blocks, which is 19 by 19 blocks. I'm not sure I'm going to quite make that, but I'll be happy if I get to 18 by 18 or 18 by 19 or 20 by 18. You know, in other words, no big shakes. The deal here is we're doing really well on that one, and that's a no lose. It's basically a pretty scrap quilt, and it's going very well. And I'm very pleased, and this will be the end of me and sport weight. I'm not a real fan of sport weight yarn. I don't use it for a lot of things anymore. The other interesting thing is I have other bits and bobs of crocheted work that I did years ago when I had leftover yarn. I basically crocheted granny squares and threw them in a bag, and I found all those and said, wow. And what this leads me to say is, yeah, I got more than 4 projects. I prefer to only work on 4 projects at a time because I need variation. I can't just knit one thing at a time. But at the same time, I don't want too much because then I forget about projects, as you can see I've done here with those old crochet blocks. So I don't like to have this many things going. At the same time, in that box, I had a few other stray skeins that wandered into my stash, and I decided to get that box out of my study. So I decided everything in that box of the sport weight for the temperature blanket had to get used. So you'll notice if you go to my Ravelry projects page, I'm Gemma DW on Ravelry, as in Dog Walk DW. If you go there, you'll see I was winding yarn this week and just labeling it for the project I want to use it in. And I just made a project for it. So it looks like I've got a huge amount of projects right now. Good. I don't care. My take on number of projects, since some people get really wrapped up about it, is I know what works for me. I don't believe in having a lot of projects, but some people do. I'm cool. Some people do better just working on one project beginning to end, and that keeps them from accumulating stash, something I really respect. To be honest, my goal right now is to empty out this room. I've got way too much yarn in this room, if that's possible, and I've stored it in various other places. And so I am working on the yarn that I can see in front of me, which is one big bin of sock yarns and some fiber that needs to be spun, and the Brava Sport for the temperature blanket that's now in the Don't Know Yet, and various collections of sweater yarns that are skeined up, ready to be sweatered, and my leftovers, because I love me some leftovers. So, you know, I think it really shows me you can have a lot of weird goals with how you're making your projects. It can be to use up your stash, which, you know, Stash does every year. It can be to make a certain kind of sweater. It can be, I'm going to make something out of this yarn I just fell in love with. It can be, I need to have millions of projects because I get startitis really easily. It can be, no, I'm working faithfully through one project at a time. The sky's the limit. As one podcaster who has long since stopped used to say, knit what you love. Do what is making you happy. You all remember I'm real excited about scrap projects. There you go. In the meantime, the Pennsylvania Dutch embroidery, I haven't been working on that one yet. That is kind of riding with me. It is within sight of me, so it's going to get done. One of the projects I started and put on my projects page was using a stray skein from the Sport Weight box. And that is from Laura, I believe, in Dizzy Blonde Studio. And it's just a stray DK. And I really didn't think I had much to match with it. So it became the Summer Solstice ribbed hat, which is based on Pearl Soho's free pattern for a basic ribbed hat. I'm having a lot of fun with it. It really is potato chip knitting. My concern, I thought, no, I'm going to hate knitting this much ribbing. It's just totally ribbing. The pattern is, I'm doing the large one, cast on 132 stitches in DK weight, and then 1 by 1 rib for 9.5 inches, I think, or something like that. I don't care, I'm at 5 inches. No, actually, it becomes stockinette. That, in other words, it's all ribbed, but you feel like you're knitting stockinette. You just get the rhythm going of switching the yarn from side to side, and I use continental knitting for this. And ribbing in continental, for me, is much easier than it used to be in English, where you're throwing. Ribbing is far easier, purling is far easier for me in continental. I get a looser stitch, and I'm great with that. So there is the Summer Solstice ribbed hat with me wearing 5 inches of it. In the meantime, you may remember when I went up to Mammoth, I stopped at Sierra Cottons and Wools. I keep calling it and Woolens, so they'll forgive me because I am advertising for free here for them because it's a terrific shop. It's just terrific. Anyway, I got Malabrigo Machista. That is something I'd never worked in. It's a fingering weight, but it's a single ply. I don't make socks out of single ply, but I bought it to make something fancy. Then I got home and I lost my marbles. I said, oh no, one skein, 480 yards. Heavens, that's not enough for a shawl. Footnote, I'd like to apologize to Fickle Knitter, the wonderful Michelle Miller, and all the people who make single skein shawls. Just a stupid set of beliefs. And so I also said, this is not going to work as lace, but even as a solid, it's not that pleasing when you do a swatch. So you know what that means. First, it means because I was an idiot, I went online and Wool and Company, woolandco.com, had a skein of it. They had 2 skeins of it, discounted to $14 because it's been discontinued in the colorway Renaissance, which is the color I have. And so I bought one. So now I've got 2 skeins of this and I want to get rid of both of them. And I'm not making socks out of them. They'll wear through really fast because they're single ply. So you bet it, I'm making the infamous Country Cotton Shawl, free pattern from Lion Brand Yarns. Link is in the show notes. You can get to it through my Ravelry Projects page. It's going like house on fire. Every time I've made this pattern, I've always used a smaller hook, even though they say hold 2 strands of thread weight crocheting yarn, really it's thread, together and use an H as in horrific sized hook. I've always said, oh, that's too big, and I've used G's and D's and E's. This time I used an H. Wow, it's huge, and I don't know if I'm even halfway through the skein, and I could pin it around my neck now. You can't quite get it to stay. So this is going to be one honkin' big shawl. Meanwhile, I've got the spare of Machista in this colorway, so I'm thinking about what I'm going to do with that. I would like to point out that Wool & Co. will actually skein up your yarn. I would like to point out that Wool & Co. will wind your yarn into a center pull cake for you and send it to you that way for free. Boy, am I glad I got them to do that. It was wonderful. So I frankly just ignored my poor little skein that I brought home from Sierra Cottons and Wools. And I took the one that Wool & Co. gracefully skeined up for me, and I'm working that. So I'm very happy. And then there were the socks. I had a sock yarn lying there in that carton. So those are the Midsummer socks. And it's such an old skein of yarn, I don't even know if the company still exists. But it's in the show notes, off the cuff. I cannot remember whose yarn it is. It has silver stellina in it. The base colors are green, blue, and gray. I am not knitting to the dyer's gauge, apparently, because it's coming out in blotches, and it looks like it might be intended to be stripes. Here's a big healthy I don't care, because I just like it when I get abstract socks. I don't really need my socks to stripe. In fact, I have a lot of striped socks. I don't need this to work. Pardon me, but I'm really enjoying this. So I have a lot of little projects going. I imagine the winners for the plane trip is probably going to be the midsummer socks, because, socks, easy to transport. However, I do get a big kick out of using my crochet hook as a hair stick when I get on an airplane and then just pulling it out of my hair and crocheting. Who knows what will go in the airplane when I go to pick up Queenie. So under my favorite resources, I have Lisa Souza yarns and webs for just general supplies, and Sierra cottons and wools, because they also have embroidery and quilting stuff, and you should go look at their online store. And if I remember, I'll put Wool & Co. on there too. Under Dizzy Blondes, I'm not spinning. I know Tour de Fleece starts this week. Last summer, Tour de Fleece got me to spin up a huge amount of my spinning stash. And I'm so grateful. That led to 3 sweaters. The Mammoth Mad Skills sweater, which was straight up right out of what I spun last summer. And then the Romule, which came out of some older spinning and some newer spinning and some scraps in my machine-made yarns. And the Feral Easter Egg, which was a mix of all the pinks, including some of the ones I did last summer. There is nothing like spinning for your own sweaters. But right now I'm not in the mood. Summer is a great time to spin because it's not hot, as long as you keep the wool out of your lap. You just have it in a pile on the floor and you're pulling from it. Nonetheless, I'm not spinning. However, I did jump in for the newest electric wheel from Maurice. I think it's a Nano. He upgraded the Nano. And I did jump for that because it was $95. And my Nanos, I just have not had the luck with. They're fine. They work fine. They're more finicky than the electric Eel Wheel 6, which I'm looking at now, which has become my workhorse spinner. And I'm totally into e-spinning. Someday I'm going to sell my stash of wooden wheels. At any rate, that's the latest on the spinning. The strategy, okay. So we're doing emotional management, and this is, I think, where I'm going to get a little political, but I'm going to try and keep a harness on it, because you guys all know what I think. But we're working on emotional management, which is, what do I do in the long term to control myself and manage myself so that I don't have highs and lows of mood? Now, in managing the highs and lows, which are the distress tolerance strategies, we've talked about positive future orientation. The interesting thing is now, with all the politics going on, what I get a lot of in therapy is young people saying, I have no hope. I have no hope for the world. And they're very tuned into what's going on, but they're learning hopelessness and learned helplessness. And so what is the long-term version of the immediate distress tolerance strategy that's called positive future orientation? The long-term version is really sort of 2 things. One is know your history. That there have been times in the history of the Western world, which is where we're living, where women have been enslaved. There have been times where they have had more freedom than we have now. Believe it or not, we don't teach that in our history books, but let me tell you, middle class and upper middle class and wealthy women of the Western world in the 18th century were doing real well for themselves in terms of freedoms. And we've kind of fallen off in the 20th and 21st centuries on that, believe it or not. But again, we don't teach that history. It's amazing what you can convince people of when you don't teach honest history. Hello? Hello? Yes? You hear what I'm saying? Yes. Yes, it's time for some honest history about the non-white people. Okay, controlling myself. All right, but the reality is, what do you learn from history? And that's the skill you learn, is you have to work for what you want. The world isn't going to hold still for you. You can't just sit there and say, wow, I've been born into a pretty safe setting and everything's okay. It doesn't work that way. My 61 years have taught me that. So what is a good emotional management strategy to support positive future orientation in the short term? It's to get out there and work for what you want in the long term. It means things like being politically active. It means things like voting. But it also means things like doing volunteer work in your community, helping children, helping to support children's projects, helping to support the things that are not funded, like theater arts and music and art classes for children, helping to get us out of the rut where the only thing that's valued is stuff that makes money for the oligarchy, like STEM. STEM is a fantastic thing, don't get me wrong, but we need more than that. Humans need creativity and art. So if you want a long-term strategy to foster hope, one of them is to get out there and make the world that you want, because you're going to live in the world that you want. Believe me, if you say my vote doesn't count, then you're going to live in a world where you're not heard and where your needs are not met. The only chance you have is to get out there and to work for what you want. And you have to be honest. There are places on this planet where no matter how much you do that, you won't get what you want. And there are places where you can even be killed for doing what you want. Hello, Ukraine, where you're standing up for fairness and yet the overlords are punishing you. It is not a fair world. Remember radical acceptance, that you have to work for what you want. But if you're going to keep yourself from having emotional highs and lows, then you have to get out there and you have to try to build the world you want. And you do it every day in the things you do with your free time. And sometimes you do it in where you choose to work. Hence, when I wanted to make a difference in the world, I started working in mental health with the disadvantaged and made the decision never to get wealthy, even though some of my colleagues do. It was more important to me to work with underprivileged populations, and I have done that for most of my career. Also, when you do that, you have to recognize there can be a stopping point where you say, now I'm suffering too much, or now I need a break. But the reality is, if you want long-term happiness and you want to manage your mood, you have to believe that you are making a positive contribution in the world over the long term. And it can be whatever you're able to do. There have been times in my life where I was raising a small child and holding down a full-time job, and I knit teddy bears for underprivileged kids in Namibia. Whatever you can do to make positive change. That is a long-term emotional management strategy. I was raised in a world where we were trained to do that in my primary school and my high school. And I still believe in that, and I believe it helps to create meaning. And it helps to create mood stability. Okay. Meanwhile, in the fluffy books, I am still reading the Introduction to American Deaf Culture by Professor Thomas Holcomb, and I am still enjoying it. It got a little dense at one point when they were talking about deaf people in the humanities, in the arts. And of course, yes, the yarn arts were not mentioned. The arts, to Professor Holcomb, means theater and visual arts like painting and poetry and literature. Go, Professor Holcomb. I am glad to read anything about deaf culture. However, I do have this fantasy of writing to Professor Holcomb and saying, are you aware that there are deaf people in the knitting and yarn community who are also doing art, including macrame and weaving and knitting and crocheting and dyeing and all that? So one of these days I'm going to sit down and start researching that and see, are there groups of deaf yarn artists? I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm thinking about it. In the meantime, I'm enjoying the Enola Holmes series by Nancy Springer. I just discovered it is limited run. She does seem, apparently at the end, to bring it to a conclusion in like the 6th book of the series. But then she has just recently released another Enola Holmes. So I mean, she went like 9 years and then released the latest Enola Holmes. So I'm looking forward to seeing how all this resolves. What do I like about Enola Holmes? Look, there's a lot of historical inaccuracy, but Springer does a pretty good job nonetheless. And I really like the fact that Enola Holmes is a young woman who believes in herself and believes in her personal efficacy, that she can do anything she needs to do. The slogan of the book is, you'll do very well on your own, Enola. And the name Enola is a Victorian name, actually, but it is the word alone spelled backwards. I mean, it's just a very smart series, and I would really like younger women to be reading it and to believe in themselves that way. She is the Hermione Granger of the Sherlock Holmes world, and I just love that, like I am still loyal to Hermione Granger. no matter what the author has done to sell out. Remember, you can love a series of books and you can acknowledge that an author doesn't do what you want with the rest of their life. There's plenty of books out there that will promote that, and sadly, Harry Potter and its creator have joined those ranks. But I do love the Hermione Granger character. She's done wonderful stuff for a generation of young women, and I think Enola Holmes has that same power, and that's a really terrific thing. I am still listening to Jane Austen at Home by Lucy Worsley. Very good. When I was young and in graduate school, the biographies of Jane Austen were simply terrible. They were just taking whole cloth the Victorian biographies of her by family members who were whitewashing and pretending that she was just always sweet and nice and genteel. No, she wasn't. We have her letters. And we also know her sister Cassandra, who was her best pal, burned a lot of her letters. Now, if your Aunt Jane is sweet and nice and genteel, why does her older sister have to get rid of some of the evidence, eh? Well, now we have much better scholarship, particularly about where Jane was commenting on world events at her time. The book of books for this is Mansfield Park, always one of my least favorites, because in an Austen novel, you're there for the heroine, and Fanny Price is a bit of a milksop, except she isn't. She does a few things, and you have to read the code to know. Now, in Jane's age, they would have known what she was doing. The name Mansfield is a reference to anti-slavery legislation from a particular judge. And in the book, while Fanny is busy being terrified of everybody, including the uncle who is raising her, she's the only one in the family who questions, hey, your money is made off slavery in Antigua. So there is a little bit going on there. And so, boy, the information on Jane Austen is so much better than it used to be. I don't always agree with Worsley's conclusions from the evidence, but she always makes a good argument. I just may not agree with her conclusion. But it's a very good book, and Lucy Worsley, the author, is so talented. She's all over the BBC doing specials on historical properties, which is actually her forte, particularly Georgian properties, which puts her in the Austen world. It is a book very worth listening to or reading if you're a Jane Austen fan. Jane Austen somehow still manages to be worth listening to and reading as well. She's still talking to us. If you want to see one of the best cognitive behavioral therapists in all of Western literature, it's Eleanor Dashwood in Sense and Sensibility. The whole bloody book is about cog-B therapy. Meanwhile, something I really like, Rebel ice cream, specifically designed to be keto. There are other ice creams that have allegedly keto versions, but Rebel was built to be keto, so I stick with it. It has a huge panoply of flavors. My favorites all have chip. Coffee chip, the absolute best, the richest flavor. And then there is cherry chip, and then there is mint chip. In that order for me. The chips are keto chocolate chips. Oh boy, these are good. These are really good. Triple chocolate, too strong for me, but the regular chocolate, really good. They have a pure vanilla bean, which I'm sure is just a typical vanilla ice cream with swerve instead of sugar in it. I haven't tried it yet. The coconut chip, just had recently, yup, really good, because those are chocolate chips. Cookie dough, birthday cake, too much for me. Too much sweetness. I feel sick when I eat them, and I crave them afterwards, which means too much carb for me. Rebel goes by net carbs. So they have more carbs than they're telling you, which means I can't eat through a pint. I can eat it in portions because I don't go with net carb. I go with total carb for my diet, but I'm diabetic. I am sensitive to carb. You may not be. At any rate, if you're wondering about those keto ice creams, yeah. The other one out there is Halo. They have low-calorie ice cream, and they have keto-specific. Too high carb for me. So I haven't really gotten into the Halos. Much more decadent flavors in some ways than Rebel. I'm a big Rebel fan. It is spelled like I'm a keto person, so I'm a rebel against the American Diabetic Association diet. So that is Rebel ice cream, and that is something I really like. There's a picture of some cherry chip with my spoon in it in the show notes. So on to the blather. Currently the blather is a lot of updates in calendar. So let me tell you, my ASL classes begin on August 22nd. I'm nervous. I'm excited. We'll see how that goes. The pup date, Captain has taken to hysteria. I think this is in response to the death of Eleanor. It is amazing. These two dogs, Blankets and Captain, have really responded to the loss of Eleanor far more deeply than any other dogs I've ever seen respond to death. Blankets is still looking for Eleanor. At night, she gets very upset. She searches the house and she searches the backyard, and she comes in and she moans to me that something is wrong. I think Blankets is now 14 or 15 years old, and she's going a little around the bend mentally. She's getting a little senile, I think, but I'm not sure. Because whatever's going on, she's missing Eleanor. Captain does not know what to do without Eleanor. Eleanor was Captain's playmate, and Eleanor, as a collie, had a lot of energy like Captain has as a border collie. So Captain has responded by being a little hysterical. And she started jumping on people and charging at people. And so, of course, we've taken that right in hand. First thing is we're working on calmly approaching her, not doing hysteria with her. And the second thing is when she does anything and when she wants anything, she has to sit and stay, and sometimes lie down and stay. This has been great. She has become much more obedient about hand signals, about sitting, about lying down, and about staying. And she's thinking at it. She's at that point that an intelligent dog reaches, where they think, do I really want to do this? So I call her into the house and she doesn't come because she's thinking she knows what comes next. She's going to have to control herself and obey. And so sometimes she doesn't want to come. It's very funny to watch because, as you know, if you've had intelligent dogs, they have to make a decision to obey you because they are smart. When they make that decision, they become sensational obedience dogs. That's very important for us. We have animals that a big dog can hurt on our farm, and we have a pony who kicks dogs. So you have to have an obedient dog around here. They can get hurt. But also, we're on a farm. They can just go running off into the hinterland where they will meet bobcats, coyotes, and mountain lions, all of whom will kill them. So we have to have obedient dogs. We can't risk our dog shooting out the front door and disappearing into the wilderness. It's a great way to get killed up here. Also, we have people with guns who will shoot a stray dog. I understand why they do that, because stray dogs kill livestock. So, again, we have to have obedient dogs. And again, also, this is why I'm very careful about the types of dogs we bring onto the farm. I get breeds that have been created to cooperate with humans and obey. I've had a couple mutts in my time on the farm, and Captain is one of them. But Captain is pretty controlled because it's Border Collie Newfoundland. Those are two good breeds for obedience. And Captain has the personality of a Border Collie, which surprises me, but it does not disappoint. But she takes a lot of work to bring her to a place where she's going to calm down and work with us. She has really started aggressing her toys and chewing on the table legs and the chair legs since the departure of Eleanor. So we're hoping that Queenie will help with this. She is teasing and bullying Blankets a lot, which bothers me. She didn't used to do that. She used to respect Blankets because Eleanor taught her to. So I'm hoping with Queenie she'll have another young dog who will want to play with her and use up that energy. Eleanor, as an adult, was always playful. So I'm hoping Queenie will be cast in that same mold. Again, Queenie's a rough collie, a Western European herding dog, the type of dogs I favor. And this is why, that I have a pretty good idea, we all hope, based on heredity, what I'm probably getting here. And that dog is very tailored for the world we're living in. I don't think we can have Captain without other dogs, which is an unusual thing. Most people say this is a dog who needs to be in a one-dog home. Captain is the direct opposite. I think she needs a job and she needs another dog. So, Queenie, you can't get here fast enough. In the meantime, I ordered the enzymatic spray for the carpets to get rid of the dog smell. Yeah. The Yosemite trip in September, we're looking for someone to throw hay in September for our pony and our llamas. If you know anybody in this area who you would trust, if you would like to come house sit for me, the dogs will be at a kennel at that time, the dogs and the cat, because I am a little nervous about their reaction. Remember, it's only 4 days. I don't like kenneling my animals any more than you probably like the idea, but they'll make it for 96 hours. And in the meantime, I don't want to leave somebody with the responsibility Minerva likes to dash out of the house. Captain is a little wild, so it's like, no, guys, we're all going to the kennel. That's simply easier on everybody. The solstice, of course, has come and gone, and I have done my quarterly fast. I enjoy doing a 48-hour water fast at the changing of the seasons. I have to tell you, I've really beaten this system. I've really learned how to make it easy. This was so simple that when I woke up on the second morning, I forgot I was even fasting. I felt perfectly good. I really didn't have to deal with a lot of hunger. And how do I do it? I do what the spas in Western Europe do when they do fasting retreats for their clients. I add electrolytes to my water, keto electrolytes. I drink water. I drink herbal tea. I do use Swerve in my tea. And I drink bone broth that I make myself. And that's it. So what's really going on there? I'm really just emptying out the solids and giving my digestive tract a rest and a reset. Why bone broth? It's got all sorts of good things, including dissolved fats and collagen in it. Very good for humans. Believe me, that's where you don't get hungry. Every time you think about a meal, you just have a huge amount of bone broth. I don't have a cup of it. I have about a quart and a half or a liter and a half of it per day. So we roasted a chicken, and that was a good cue to make bone broth. And then I was set up, and I just defrost a big Tupperware vat of it every day for use each day. So how does it work? On Wednesday nights, the boys are home. We have dinner together. When I wake up Thursday morning, I'm already 12 hours into the fast. Thursday evenings, the boys are usually away and I work late, so I just skip dinner, and I've already skipped lunch. And you don't really notice it, but you do keep drinking hot bone broth all day long, cold if you want, doesn't matter. Hey, consommé. But you keep drinking it all day. And I drink water, and in some of the water, I put electrolytes. I usually drink about, I would say, somewhere close to 40 ounces of water with electrolyte a day. One of the things I do a lot here, as you can tell, is I'm drinking a lot of liquid, a lot. The fasts are a way to rehydrate myself. I do tend not to drink enough. So the fasts feel great because I rehydrate. So then Thursday night, since the boys are away, I don't bother with food. And when I wake up Friday morning, it's been 36 hours. Now, my experience is I need 36 hours to get any benefits from a fast. So anywhere after Friday morning, I feel fine stopping, but I don't. I go till dinner Friday night. Again, drinking water and tea and bone broth. And I do just fine, frankly. I'm not hungry. I'm a little bored. You start to really look forward to a more complex meal. This Friday, the boys actually were away, and I decided to break the fast anyway, and I took myself out for a nice salad with grilled chicken and some shrimp to get fat on the salad, and blue cheese dressing, and it was great. So that was my fast. What do I get out of this? Well, two things. One, I get bone broth, that it's always good to drink some collagen. I have great skin. As you age, your skin gets harder and less collagen, so drinking some is a really nice thing to do. You get a lot of minerals that are leached out of the bones of the bones that you're cooking, the bones of the bone broth. And how do you make bone broth? Well, anytime we have bones, beef bone, pork bone, doesn't matter, chicken bones, I throw it in the Instant Pot. You can also throw it in a slow cooker overnight. You fill it with water, add anything you want to it. You can add chopped onion, chopped carrot, chopped celery. You can add herbs and spices. I usually don't have to because my husband cooks with a lot of herbs and spices. So I usually just toss it. And I may toss, if there's extra vegetables, I may toss them in too. And you just stick it in your Instant Pot and fill it with water, or your slow cooker. Slow cooker, you cook it overnight. And you can cook it on low overnight so you don't lose too much of the liquid. The Instant Pot, you fill it up to its fill mark and you cook it for 1 hour. In either case, when you're done cooking, you turn it off and you have to let it sit a number of hours to cool down enough. And I do that overnight. So after dinner, I will fill the Instant Pot with the bones and the water and anything else I want to add in. And when it turns off, I turn it off completely. I leave a lid on it, but I let it cool overnight. Never seems to have done any damage. And then the next day, I ladle it into Tupperware. I strain it through a very fine strainer first. Cheesecloth, a metal sieve, whatever you've got. and then I ladle it into Tupperware when it's cool, and I freeze most of it. I'll keep some in the fridge so that we have chicken stock for cooking all the time, or beef stock or pork stock. It doesn't matter much to me. I use the stock to make soup at lunchtime, to do all sorts of things. So that's how you make your basic bone broth, and it's great when you're fasting. What do I get out of the fast? Well, first of all, the first night of the fast, I sleep like I always sleep because I don't eat for 16 hours a day. So every morning I wake up on a 12-hour fast, so that's no big deal. So the first night you have normal sleep. The second night, I tend to dream very deeply and to sleep very deeply, and you feel your body just kind of letting go. I can't explain it better than that. And then you start eating after 48 hours, but yet when you get to 60 hours, shall I delicately say, I release the toxins in my body through the disposal system. And you really do. The third day, even though I'm eating again, I do spend more time using my bidet skills because you do tend to clear things out. And you feel very good. And I still do, by the way. I finished this Friday night, and it's now Monday morning. You just feel lighter, better, more alert. It just makes your body feel good. It makes your tummy go flat, which is always nice. You just flatten out because you get some goop out of your digestive tract when you do this. So that's the solstice fast, and it went very, very well. Queenie's big road trip is July 11th to 13th. We are on. I'm flying to Wichita and back, hopefully with Queenie. So we are somewhere around, I think, 18 days, 17 days till Queenie comes. I'm scared. I'm excited. I don't like flying. And flying with a puppy, I can't imagine. But it'll be a big road trip, and I'm really looking forward to it. And she is on the ground, and we have pictures of her. She's more red-brown. I had been looking for yellow gold like Eleanor. And I'm kind of coming to grips with the fact Eleanor was a one-off. She was not the perfect collie. She was a very strong-willed and difficult dog to work with. That's very unusual for rough collies, although I've known a few. And again, like Captain, you have to realize that's a smart dog, and that's a dog who's going to excel in obedience. Eleanor did. She was a super obedience dog. The one problem with Eleanor, the one glitch, if there was no food reward, she wasn't obeying you. I'm really astonished, but a lot of breeders do that. If you watch people in agility, they walk out into an agility course with this uber obedient dog, and you can see they're carrying food. So, Eleanor was no different than many of her colleagues who do superb obedience work. I am not that big on that kind of dog, but I'm crazy wild about Eleanor, and I am still grieving her. And it is hard for me to look at Queenie and realize she isn't going to be a duplicate Eleanor. She's going to be Queenie. At the same time, there are some ways where that would be very good. What was I looking for in Queenie? The big white mane, the sable coloring, the long, elegant white evening gloves on her forelegs, and Queenie's got that. Eleanor had that. She's going to be darker than Eleanor, and I'm going to learn to love a whole different colorway in a collie. I am looking forward to our Queenie. The only thing that would interfere if she doesn't fit in the carrier, because I have to get her on an airplane. Minerva gets the last word. We are at peace here on the farm. My life is much better. I am calming down. I was living in a state of high anxiety in the first half of this year because so many things went haywire. Minerva nearly killing herself, the death of Eleanor, which when I look back, we knew. She aged really prematurely when she was like 7.5, and I always knew this wasn't going to be a long-lived dog, but 9 years, her and Baron, that's hard. My dogs and my cats usually live forever, so that's hard. But it's been hard. It's been a hard year. My husband getting 2 eye surgeries and the costs of that. It was a great thing to do, but all of this has set us back in vet bills and flying out to get Queenie and surgery bills and everything else. So we're sort of climbing back onto our feet. And also I had the really difficult situation with the supervision at work, and that's all resolved. I have a great supervisee. Things are very quiet. Things are very peaceful. I'm very happy. So I'm kind of learning to be happy. I'm climbing again. I'm doing all sorts of things. Not right now because we have a 100-degree heat wave out there today. So how does this relate to Minerva? If you look at the picture, she's sitting in front of the window this past Wednesday when we had a day of cool weather and thunderstorms, and she's looking at the overcast. There's been a lot of overcast this week. you can guess I'm very, very angry and unhappy about Roe versus Wade, not for the reasons you might think. The reason I'm concerned about it is, first, this is the Supreme Court overturning the Supreme Court. That is not good. That is not a good precedent. So what are they saying about that previous Supreme Court? That they violated the law? What is going on here? Now, the interesting thing is I'm in America where the law is made by the people. That's what we were taught. But yet, the Supreme Court decision actually is a violation of the majority will in America. We already know that at least 65% of Americans did not want this. So if the Supreme Court is not representing the will of the people, they can't be representing the law. If the law is not the will of the people, that is deeply disturbing. If the Supreme Court does not represent the people of America, that is really disturbing. If the Supreme Court is overturning laws made by the Supreme Court, that is really disturbing. I'm not even going to go into what I think about Roe versus Wade, but what is our Supreme Court doing? So that's me on my Supreme Court rant. And I am concerned, but I keep looking at the strategies that I would use, which is work for change. And if you're Minerva, you're looking out at a world that's gone cloudy, and you're saying, this will pass. If we work, we can change this. So all I can say is, all right, this is the world we live in, but Minerva's last word is one of hope. You look at the clouds and you realize they're only a temporary state, as all things are in this life. So, everybody, the job here, it's a hard time. We've got inflation, we've got pandemic, we've got high gas prices because, it's pretty obvious the oligarchy's trying to force Biden out of power. So they're going to make all the prices high and make people suffer till they get what they want. They get a leadership that doesn't tax them and lets them accumulate vast fortunes, and that's when they'll let prices get lower. So they're punishing us for electing a Democratic president. And that's what we're looking at. But you know what? I've seen this before. I'm 60 years old. If we get out there and we are active, this will pass. And so Minerva's last word, the clouds will pass. Okay, so on that note, everybody please get your boosters, socially distance, wash your hands, wear your mask where it is appropriate. Keep those masks on hand because we know there's likely to be another surge. Get your kids vaccinated. And the whole point of this is everybody please stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.